Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise and get straight to the fascinating core of complex topics. Today, we're diving into a stack of really compelling sources that challenge and deepen our understanding of our own ancient past. Our mission is to journey back, way back, tens of thousands of years, and explore the intriguing story of the Cro-Magnons, the earliest anatomically modern humans to step foot in Europe. We'll unearth their mysterious origins, their incredible adaptations to, well, the brutal Ice Age, their surprising artistic and intellectual achievements, and their complex, sometimes pretty brutal interactions with another famous hominid group, the Neanderthals. It's a deep dive that reveals not just who they were, but how their choices, their capabilities still resonate with us today.
It really is a profound look at humanity's early journey. It showcases just how resilient and innovative these ancestors were. What truly stands out in these sources, I think, is how multiple pieces of evidence, even ones that initially seem to conflict, they ultimately weave together to build a richer, far more nuanced picture of this really pivotal period.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then, the initial discovery. The story kicks off March 1868. French geologist Louis Lartet makes this landmark find. 5 skeletons, 4 adults, 1 infant, along with distinctive tools, ornaments, inside the Cro Magnon rock shelter in southwestern France. And this discovery immediately signaled something different, right? Different from the Neanderthals they already knew about.
Precisely. Yeah, these remains were quickly recognized as a separate, distinct prehistoric human group. And while they were initially called Cro-Magnons, you'll find the scientific literature today more commonly calls them anatomically modern humans, AMH, or specifically European early modern humans, EMH.
Right. So when we picture these pioneering humans, the ones who arrived in Europe, somewhere between 50,000 and maybe 56,800 years ago, coming from Western Asia, the Middle East, what did they actually look like?
Well, our sources paint a pretty remarkable picture. They were, and this isn't an exaggeration, incredibly robust individuals. Descriptions consistently point to them being strong, powerful, exceptionally muscular. I mean, modern humans average maybe 5'5". Cro-Magnon males, generally over 5'9", 1.75 meters. And some populations, particularly in Eastern Europe, range from 5'10" up to an impressive 6'2". We even have individual specimens reaching 6'3". That's taller than a lot of professional athletes playing today.
Wow. That's genuinely astonishing, especially considering, how our own builds have changed. What else made them so formidable?
Yeah, it wasn't just the height. Their skeletal structures were significantly more robust than ours. We're talking larger, broader, denser bones. Just to give you an idea, a medium-sized Cro-Magnon's collarbone, the clavicle, could measure up to 7.5 inches, 19 centimeters.
7.5 inches.
Yeah, that's about a quarter longer than today's average. And that specific detail, it hints at incredibly powerful shoulder movements, essential for throwing spears, using heavy tools. Research suggests they were probably about 20% heavier than a modern human of the same height, with a much higher degree of lean muscle mass.
Okay, so true physical powerhouses, really adapted for that challenging Ice Age world. What about their faces, their brains?
They had a small, broad face, a straight brow, modest brow ridges, but notably distinct from Neanderthals because of a very prominent chin. That's a key feature. Their skulls housed relatively large brains, averaging around 1,600 cubic centimeters, which is actually slightly larger than the average modern human brain today, comparable even to Neanderthals in size. They also had that globular brain case, upright posture, a completely flat face, all traits we share today. And what's intriguing is that this modern-looking face, it seems to have a really ancient lineage. You can even trace similar features back to Homo antecessor.
Okay, so living in Ice Age Europe sounds incredibly brutal. How did these, physically imposing, big-brained humans manage to not just survive, but actually thrive?
Well, their robust build was definitely crucial. Navigating dangerous terrain, tackling large prey, that strength mattered. But beyond just brute strength, the fossil evidence shows this remarkable capacity for enduring and recovering from significant ailments and really catastrophic injuries.
Like what kind of injuries?
We see examples like specimens with fused vertebrae in their necks. There's a female who survived a major skull fracture. And Cro-Magnon 1, the very first one identified, he lived to an old age despite suffering from a genetic disease that caused cysts and tumors. It just speaks volumes about their resilience and maybe even suggests some level of communal care, perhaps.
That level of survival is incredible, especially without modern medicine. What about their day-to-day, their hunting, where they lived?
Their hunting was incredibly sophisticated. They primarily targeted large megafauna animals like horses, reindeer, bison, aurochs, ibex, even woolly mammoths.
Woolly mammoths, that's serious prey.
Absolutely. And they developed complex tactics, these game drive strategies, basically cornering large numbers of prey into confined spaces like cliff walls or bodies of water
Mm-hmm.
for mass killings. They also understood seasonality. During off-seasons, they knew when fish were most plentiful, making fish a significant part of their diet too.
Right.
They were very capable killers, even taking down top predators like big cats, hyenas, bears, often using stone and bone-tipped spears.
It's remarkable, their efficiency. And yeah, their impact was so significant that some extinctions, like the mammoths you mentioned, are partially attributed to them. A trend that sadly continues. What about their homes?
They established surprisingly settled societies, actually. They frequently occupied deep caverns, shallow caves formed by rock overhangs, using these shelters year-round. But they also constructed impressive open-air sites, large huts, built from things like mammoth skulls and bones, often lined with grass or animal pelts for insulation.
Huts made of mammoth bones.
Yeah, quite something. And these structures often had indoor hearths, designated working areas. Camps were typically small, maybe a few dozen residents, but meticulously organized. Specific zones for sleeping, cooking, butchering. They even created multiple seasonal camps to follow resources. Shows a really deep understanding of their environment.
That paints a picture of a really organized, adaptable society. Were they isolated groups or did they interact?
Oh, absolutely not isolated.
Yeah.
Despite the harsh environment, they developed extensive trading routes. These spanned across the entire continent. Our sources show raw materials being sourced from groups over 120 miles. That's 200 kilometers away.
Wow, that far.
Mm-hmm. And this trade wasn't just for, luxury items. It was crucial for getting vital tools, resources,
Mm-hmm.
especially during the peak of the Ice Age, the last glacial maximum, when things were toughest. And another thing, they domesticated the dog. We have a 36,000-year-old specimen from Belgium, and a 15,000-year-old dog buried alongside a man and a woman.
Buried together.
Yeah, which really underscores the vital, integrated role these animals must have played in their society.
Okay, this next part is what I find truly captivating about the Cro-Magnons, maybe more than anything else. Their art. The astonishing depth of their artistic expression. Our sources highlight them as creators of some of the earliest and frankly most stunning prehistoric art. What forms did this actually take?
Their artistic expression was incredibly diverse. They carved and sculpted intricate small engravings, reliefs, statuettes, humans, animals, and most famously perhaps are the Venus figurines, figures of large-breasted, wide-hipped, clearly pregnant women, often interpreted as being used in fertility ceremonies or representing fertility itself.
So what does all this suggest about their beliefs, their worldview?
Well, the symbolism is complex, obviously, but the general thinking is they likely practiced some form of shamanism. Cave art, especially those depictions of human-animal hybrids, probably played an essential ritualistic role in that. They also adorned their bodies. Colorful beads, clothes made from plant fibers. They used red ochre for design, simple dots, complex figures. And the evidence also points to tattoos, scarification, maybe even piercings.
And the cave paintings themselves are just breathtaking. I mean, the images you see online are stunning, but the detail described in our sources is something else.
Indeed. Animals like lions, deer, mammoths, horses, aurochs, bison, they were common subjects, found in iconic places like Chauvet Cave in France. The sheer quality of their work, it really demonstrates they weren't novices. These were masters who had experimented with various artistic mediums, genres. They clearly valued art, both for aesthetic reasons and for profound religious purposes.
And beyond the visual arts, they actually created music, too.
Yes. Now, they weren't the very first humans known to play music, but they certainly had the most complex forms discovered up to that point. They crafted bone flutes, whistles, idiophones, things like rattles or bells that vibrate themselves, drums, and even bull roarers.
Bull roarers.
Yeah, those instruments you whirl around on a string. Their musical technology was apparently so advanced that scientists think we're probably missing a significant chunk of their musical history. Things made of wood or hide just didn't survive. And this intellectual capacity, you see it in their art, their music, their problem-solving and hunting, these complex social structures like trade routes. It all points strongly to a highly developed intelligence.
Okay, so let's shift to their neighbors. The Cro-Magnons coexisted with Neanderthals in Europe for thousands of years, typically between, say, 100,000 and 10,000 years, from about 50,000 down to 40,000 years ago until the Neanderthals vanished. This leads us to a really crucial question. Did they interbreed? Our sources present some incredibly intriguing yet seemingly conflicting evidence on this.
Right, and this is where the story truly gets nuanced and where our understanding has really shifted quite dramatically in recent years. On one hand, you have genetic analysis of specimens like Pugliese 23, That's a 28,000-year-old Cro Magnon from southern Italy. Initially, studies found no evidence of Neanderthal DNA. Its mitochondrial DNA sequence is actually still common in Europe today, which suggests a direct genealogical continuity from Cro-Magnons to modern Europeans, implying Neanderthals are not our direct ancestors. This aligns pretty well with the classic out-of-Africa paradigm, right? Modern humans replaced archaic forms without significant interbreeding as they spread out.
But you said conflicting evidence, so what's the other side of that genetic coin?
Exactly. Other, more recent research, using really sophisticated simulation models and, crucially, more ancient DNA, suggests that while large-scale interbreeding was probably unlikely, isolated instances can't be ruled out. And what's particularly fascinating, a real game-changer, is the 40,000-year-old OAS-1 specimen, found in Romania.
OAS-1. What was special about it?
This individual showed an astonishing 9% Neanderthal DNA. 9%.
Yeah.
Which translates to having a Neanderthal ancestor as recent as maybe 4 to 6 generations back.
4 generations? That's incredibly recent.
It was a scientific bombshell because it directly challenged that idea of a clean, complete replacement. No question. It also correlates with observations that some early Cro-Magnon specimens do show slight Neanderthal-like features like flattened skull caps. So this finding, it aligns more with aspects of the multi-regional hypothesis, suggesting more continuous evolution, some gene flow, some admixing between different human groups across different regions.
Wow. That OAS-1 find really does paint a far more complex picture than just simple replacement. Okay, so beyond interbreeding, what about conflict? Was coexistence always peaceful?
Unfortunately, no. The harsh realities of Ice Age Europe, competition for vital resources, it likely led to violence. Our sources point to clear evidence of interhuman violence. Skull fractures, head injuries, they weren't uncommon, and some appear specifically human-made. For instance, there's Cro-Magnon 2, a male specimen, over 30,000 years old, shows a severe facial injury. Looks consistent with a blow from a blunt force weapon.
And even more disturbing, was cannibalism a possibility?
Yeah, there is grim evidence, yes. From Gawk Cave in England, dated around 15,000 years ago, it shows human skull caps that seem to have been modified, perhaps used as drinking cups or eating bowls.
Skull cups.
Skull cups. And even more chilling, other fossils from the same cave show human bodies that were meticulously butchered with knives. Bones cracked open, presumably from marrow, including 2 very young individuals. Now, the exact reasons, whether it was purely survival, ritualistic, something else, it's still debated, but the physical evidence itself is pretty undeniable.
So if that's the general picture of violence, what does it tell us about their relationship with Neanderthals specifically, given that Neanderthals vanished not long after Cro-Magnons arrived?
Well, while direct, large-scale warfare isn't thought to be the main factor in Neanderthal demise, hostile encounters certainly weren't absent. Our sources highlight a really intriguing case, a 50,000-year-old cold case, you could call it. A Neanderthal found with a rib injury from a ranged stone point weapon, a projectile point.
And that's significant because?
Because Cro-Magnons were known to use ranged weapons like spear throwers or possibly even bows later on, while Neanderthals primarily used thrusting spears for close-quarters hunting, so the weapon type points towards Cro-Magnon technology. Additionally, there's a Neanderthal jawbone that bore cut marks, eerily similar to those found on deer butchered by Cro-Magnons.
Suggesting
Suggesting the possibility of cannibalism, yes.
Yeah.
Or perhaps using body parts as trophies, we can't be certain. But these specific encounters really highlight the strategic advantage range tools likely gave Cro-Magnons in any direct interactions.
Okay, so unlike the Neanderthals, the Cro-Magnons obviously didn't vanish. What actually became of them? Where did they go?
That's maybe the most fascinating part of their story, in a way. They didn't really go anywhere in the sense of dying out. They were exceptionally successful. Throughout the late Pleistocene, they maintained very high fertility rates. Their population grew significantly by a factor of 10, some estimate, reaching over 70,000 individuals across Europe by about 13,000 years ago.
70,000? That's a lot for that time.
It is. So instead of disappearing, they were progressively incorporated into later European groups. Now, their specific Cro-Magnon DNA profile became less prevalent over time due to later migrations and population mixing, especially with the arrival of farmers from the Near East during the Neolithic. But their significant genetic descendants continued all the way into the Neolithic period. And elements of their genetic legacy are absolutely still carried by many modern European populations today.
So they truly are our direct ancestors, not just some separate group that died out and left no trace behind.
Exactly. They form a foundational part of European ancestry.
This deep dive into the Cro-Magnons has been an incredibly insightful journey, uncovering a people who weren't just physically formidable, but also remarkably intelligent, artistic, socially complex, from their, towering stature and innovative hunting to their intricate art and those surprising complex interactions with Neanderthals. They truly laid some fundamental groundwork for modern humanity in Europe.
What's profoundly significant here, I think, is how our understanding of these early modern humans just keeps evolving as new evidence emerges. Each discovery seems to challenge old assumptions, revealing a more complex, more interwoven story of human history than we previously thought. The real aha moment for me is truly grasping that the line between us and them, these ancient peoples, is far blurrier, and our shared past is far richer than we once imagined.
So what does this all mean for you listening? It means that within each of us lies this deep lineage, a heritage of resilience, creativity, adaptability, stretching back tens of thousands of years.
Which really leads us to consider, doesn't it? Given the Cro-Magnons' incredible ability to adapt and innovate, facing the sheer harshness of the Ice Age, what might we be truly capable of if we deliberately tapped into that deep ancestral capacity for problem solving, for collaboration today, especially when we face our own very different contemporary challenges?
A powerful thought to end on. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the mysterious origins and incredible lives of the Cro-Magnons. Until next time, keep digging into what makes you curious.